Hi, everyone. Welcome to Social Studies Online. My name is Eden Cho. I'm a museum educator at the National Museum of American History. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. Please ask any questions you may have by commenting in the chat box. During our time here together, our guests will answer them live. We do ask that you keep your personal information private. And all of the resources that you see today are available on our Learning Lab page, and I'll include the link in the chat box. So I'm going to turn over the introductions to our host today, Orlando Serrano.
All right. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon or evening, whatever time of the day it is for you when you decide to join us. Thank you for being with us. Today, we are excited to have two wonderful guests with us. First, Dr. Margaret Salazar-Portillo, and secondly, Robert Morey. And they're going to share a little bit about the work they have done and are continuing to do on an exhibit called Pleibol, which focuses on Latinos and baseball and the intersections, the interweavings between those two particular ideas. And so first I'd like to welcome Margie, or Dr. Margaret Salazar-Portillo. Sorry, I slip back and forth.
You can call me Margie. Of course.
Margie, thank you for being with us. Can you please share a little bit about yourself, the work that you do at Smithsonian, and a little bit about the project overall?
Sure. So my name is Margaret Salazar-Portillo, but you could definitely call me Margie. I'm a curator of Latinx history and culture in the Division of Cultural and Community Life at the National Museum of American History. And I've been at the museum I'm in my 8th year working on some exciting projects, including Pleibol in the Barrios and the Big Leagues and Los Barrios y las Grandes Ligas. And this, it's now an exhibit, but it was a project for many years before it became an exhibit. And the project is about 5 years old. We've been working very closely with communities to try to document the histories of Latinos, Latinas in baseball, and how baseball really is more than just a game in many Latino communities across the nation. So we are excited that our exhibit has launched a traveling version in Saginaw, Michigan in January, and it's going to launch an artifact-rich version at the National Museum of American History later this summer. So we're really hopeful about that.
Wonderful. Thank you again for being with us and sharing your work with us. One more quick note, I want to echo what Eden said earlier. If you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And we're going to get going and talk a little bit, have a conversation around some artifacts that you have brought to share from the Collecting Initiative turned exhibit. So we can see here for folks joining us, we're using Learning Lab as our platform and a little bit of navigation advice. Anytime you see an eye, you can click on it and it'll pull up more information. It'll tell you what this is. So we're going to learn a little bit about Margie Villa's uniform in a second. And if you'll see that as we navigate through this, you click on these arrows to move from one tile to the next. So as we get started to have a conversation around this, I do want to let you all know that we're going to learn about this artifact, the story behind this artifact, and we're going to do so using a technique called step in, step out, step back. And Eden can put the information as to where to find that in the chat, and it will live there after the conversation today. Margie, before we move into that particular sort of thinking structure, can you let us know what we're looking at? What is the story of this artifact?
Sure. Well, it's such a lovely jacket and jersey. It's this kind of silky material. I love that it's bright red. It's super cute. You can tell that it's a little bit older because the neck of the jacket is a little bit moth-eaten, but I love the design. It's got this Peter Pan collar and these cap sleeves, and it's definitely fancy. It's a jacket and jersey that belonged to Marge Villa, later Villa Creon. And I don't just love this because we have the same name, but, she's also from Montebello, California, and I'm from Southern California. So I feel like I feel some connections to these objects, both personally and professionally. But when Marge wore this, she was only 13 years old in 1939. She played for a local East Los Angeles team called the Garvey Stars. So you can see the star with it, which is a reference to that. And, while using this jacket, she really could never have known that her career would take off just a few years later. So she ended up playing for the semi-professional team, the Orange Lionettes, which is also from Southern California. And then she was quickly signed. Her talent was just enormous. And so she was quickly signed to the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League in 1946. And, that's an exciting story, too, because ultimately this was the only time that women had a professional baseball league like this. She ended up playing for the Kenosha Comets for about 5 years.
So for folks who are joining us at home, the story of, what is it? Why can't I remember the movie right now, Margie? What's the name of the movie?
Of the what?
A League of Their Own.
Oh, yes.
A League of Their Own tells the story of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League in which Marge played.
She did. And she also consulted on the movie. She, being from California, the studios called her up and she consulted on the movie to help them make it as realistic as possible.
Very cool. All right. So knowing what you know about Marge and some of the information that you've given us already in terms of her background, where she was from, how she got introduced to the game, I'm going to ask you these 3 questions to help us gain some more perspective on her life and some of the context in which she lived. So the first is, given what you know about this time, what do you think Marge might have felt, believed, known, or experienced on a day-to-day basis as a women's professional baseball player?
Well, what is interesting is that only 11 Latinas played for the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. And Marge Villa, is included in that number. She was Mexican-American. 9 other players came from Cuba, 1 from Venice, California. And so these Latinas were allowed to play during an era of de facto segregation in everyday life, and an era of strict racial segregation in organized sports. But they were allowed to play because they had fair skin. So Marge broke barriers in multiple ways. She was, obviously a female player in a professional league for the first time in history during the Second World War. She was fluent in Spanish. She served as her team's interpreter on their tours in Latin America. And she actually had a tremendous amount of parental and family support pursuing a baseball career, which was also uncommon at the time in many American households. So she was a professional athlete at a time when many Latinos, and in particular Latinas, women, were not allowed to play professional sports. And, even today, there isn't a female baseball league. So I think that, all of this kind of context would go into the fact that she ended up leaving high school early in order to take this opportunity, because she knew it was a huge opportunity.
Okay. So, and then if we step out a little bit, what else do you think would be helpful to know or to learn to better understand the life that she lived? You've given us plenty that to help us construct that. What else would be helpful to know?
Well, I think we have to kind of think through, the context of racial segregation. Until Jackie Robinson broke the color line in baseball in 1947, most Latino players were not even considered for the major leagues unless they could pass for white or Anglo. And so Mexican-American women's teams actually gained a lot of popularity during the 1930s in communities. And this was a time when Latinas and Latinos were segregated, not only in sports, but in schools, in work, in neighborhoods, and in other recreational activities. And because of this segregation, Latinas and Latinos across the country ended up carving out their own spaces to play baseball and softball and to, enjoy the things that they wanted to enjoy and make kind of a world of their own when they weren't allowed in some of the more mainstream sports. So I think that Marge Villa's Garvey Stars team was one of these spaces. And in the Mexican-American community, churches and small businesses would often sponsor these teams. And these barrio teams where it was acceptable for women to participate because they were sponsored by trusted churches, by trusted, community organizations and businesses. And so a lot of Mexican American women in particular were able to challenge the kind of socially constructed notions of gender and femininity. And they were able to assert their autonomy, their athleticism, their cultural pride. So Marge is part of this larger tradition, but again, was only one of 11 Latinas who were able to join the AAGPBL.
Very good. Thank you. All right, we're going to transition to our next artifact. And, if folks happen to watch us and they're of a certain age, they will definitely remember this style of jacket. I particularly remember having an Old Navy jacket that looked a lot like this. So I know that this is from the 1990s. But Margie, can you tell us whose jacket this is and who it is that signed this hat right here? And what is the relationship between this person and the Colorado Rockies?
Sure. Well, these pieces of clothing, the jacket and the hat, belonged to Linda Alvarado. Linda made Major League Baseball history in the 1990s, which was when this jacket style was popular. She was the first woman to ever win a bid on a Major League Baseball team franchise. And that was when she became a part owner of the Colorado Rockies. And the Rockies refer to the Rocky Mountain Range, which is in Colorado. The stadium, in fact, is built a mile high, and there's like a line on the stadium to show where that mark of a mile is in Denver, which is in the heart of the Rocky Mountains. So what's exciting about this jacket is that it's her jacket that she received when she started the team with a number of other investors. And they were like, okay, well, what should we give out to the owners? And obviously Colorado can be a little cold, especially at the start of baseball season. It's not quite warm yet. So they're like, oh, everybody needs a jacket. And the back of the jacket features the purple and black baseball field, which is like, this is actually an early team logo, and the team logo has since changed. And if you get a little closer, that is her signature on the hat. She spontaneously signed a bunch of caps as gifts for children who had attended one of the games, and they like saw her and were calling out to her. And so she like bought a bunch of hats and signed them all, and she ended up having an extra one. So she just kept it for herself and then ended up donating it to the museum.
Very cool. And, for folks also joining us and who maybe not be familiar, it's actually the start of baseball season now. So imagine, again, playing baseball right now in Colorado. Maybe not that, warm at all, and why the jacket is so necessary. And we have a picture here of, I believe, is this Andres Galarraga, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he was first baseman. This is taken in like the mid 1990s. And there's Linda down on the field with Andres. It's at Coors Field in Denver, the Mile High Stadium. And so this is around the first in the first seasons that they started the team. And Linda is great. She's down to earth, and rain or shine, whenever she has a chance, she likes to spend time like talking with the players during warm-ups, during practice. And I think that part of it is that, she was an amazing, strong businesswoman before she became owner of the Rockies. But she broke those barriers into primarily male industries, in construction, which is where she really made a huge impact, and then in baseball. And so I think it's really exciting that that she has made this mark in extraordinary ways in these two male-dominated industries. But also, you could tell that she doesn't mind being in a room with a bunch of guys, right? She knows how to. She's in control of a lot of really high-profile organizations, and she's strong and powerful. So, hooray, Linda!
Yeah, and I appreciate you sort of helping us walking us through, like stepping into some of the experiences that she might have on a day-to-day basis, working in a predominantly male field, some of the difficulties that inherently come with being the only woman in a boardroom. It's construction, right? It's a construction company.
Yeah, Alvarado Construction, exactly.
Yeah.
That was her business. It is her business.
And then being in a baseball boardroom that's overwhelmingly male. I'm curious, can you say a little bit about, what you know about her and her life so far? What do you notice about your own perspective and what it takes to shift away from your life, and your experiences to better understand hers? This is the last part, the step in, step out, and step back a little bit.
Right. Well, Linda, she grew up in a family of modest means, 6 children. She was one, and I think she only had brothers. So she was kind of used to she always tells these stories about how she was used to being rough and tumbled, throughout her years. But she has this great quote, which is something like, she knows that she didn't look the part of like a construction company owner, and she maybe didn't fit the role of like a baseball owner, but that it's like really important, not how other people would perceive us, but how we see ourselves and how we perceive ourselves. And so I always think about that, like, it doesn't really matter, in some ways, it doesn't really matter how others see us. But if we already think that we can't do something, then we can't do it. And Linda never thought she couldn't do these things, right? So like for me, that helps me to kind of think through like what her perspective is and how it maybe relates to some of the things that I'd like to accomplish in my life.
Very cool. All right. We have time for one more story. So we know that this is Jessica Mendoza's ring, as it says there, but can you tell us the story of this ring and Jessica Mendoza for folks who may not know who she is?
Sure. So yes, the ring is from Jessica Mendoza. She's also from California. She's from Camarillo, California. She helped her Team USA, win the Olympic gold medal in softball in Athens, Greece in 2004. And so you can see all of the details there on that beautiful little ring. She won a gold medal, and this was a gold ring that she received as well. And she, she's an amazing athlete, but she went on to the Olympics again in 2008, but she also became a broadcaster. So in August of 2015, she became the first woman to serve as a commentator for a Major League Baseball on ESPN. And that's such a great picture. I love that because you can see all their smiling faces. That's Team USA. And there's Jessica. She's right next to the. Yeah, that's her. That's her with the great smile. And she continues to break barriers because she became the first woman in Major League Baseball history to call a postseason game. And she's currently broadcasting on ESPN, continues to, and I believe she's also serving as an analyst for the Mets.
Yes, she is. For those of us who happen to have grown up as Mets fans, the curse of being a Mets fan or watching the Mets. Yeah, she's an advisor to the general manager, so helping to scout talent and whatnot. All right. Well, Margie, thank you very much for being with us and for sharing these stories and some of your work with us. We'll welcome you back in a few minutes to play a game called What Is It? But for now, we're going to say goodbye. Thank you, Margie.
Thanks so much. This was fun.
All right, Eden, we're getting ready to bring on our next guest. Any observations that you have? Anything that stood out to you? Or I let them know that you might have a question that they need to prepare for. So do you have any questions that Margie might need to prep for in the interim?
I do wonder, because as a curator, I assume like you do a lot of research when you're working on an exhibit or a project. And I do wonder how much research the team needed to have on baseball itself. Like if they walked into the meeting, like already being baseball fans, knew all of the terminology, knew what a shortstop was, or were they like me where I'm missing half of the conversation because I don't follow sports?
All right, Margie, that's your question to think about when we come back. Robin, Thank you for being with us today. It's a pleasure to welcome you. May you please say a little bit about yourself, the work that you do, and your role in this project for folks joining us at home?
Yeah, hi Orlando, hi Eden. My name is Robin. I'm the curatorial assistant for the Pleibol exhibition. I've been helping Margie with all aspects of the project, but right now I'm mostly working on making as many of our exhibition materials as possible available online. We have some fantastic educational resources on the Pleibol Learning Lab, and we also have a really cool collection of interactive 3D models with AR capabilities and things like that. So that's primarily what I've been doing for the past few months.
That is very exciting, and we will make sure to share those links for folks to be able to click on and manipulate those models on their computers at home. And before we talk about the 3 artifacts you brought to share with us, can you let us know a little bit about your thinking? What is the through line that connects them all together?
Yeah, so one thing that we've seen a lot is that baseball gave the Latino community a space where they could proudly express their cultural heritage. So, Latinos bring their own style to the game. And in the Pleibol exhibit, we wanted to feature a number of artifacts that really exemplify this creativity.
All right, so creativity, that's what we're looking at. And we're going to start here with this particular jersey. And
Yeah.
can you please let us know what this is and what playfulness went into this particular jersey design?
Yeah, sure. So one of the most common expressions of this sort of like cultural creativity is in custom uniforms like this one. So, like jerseys represent participation in a team, and for players and fans alike, they represent being part of something bigger than yourself, right? So this jersey in particular is from a league in Chicago, the Roberto Clemente Victor Ramos Baseball League. And Chicago has a very vibrant Puerto Rican community. And every year, this baseball league renames its teams for different towns in Puerto Rico. So the SS on that jersey, that's for the town of San Sebastián. And the team name, Los Boricuas, comes from the indigenous Taino word for the island, Borinquen. And Boricua is a word that Puerto Ricans use to identify themselves as Puerto Rican. And the mascot, the little frog you see there, that's called the coqui, which is for the sound that it makes. And the frog is native to Puerto Rico and can be heard throughout the island. So the name, Los Boricuas, and the mascot are used in this jersey to creatively represent Puerto Rican identity. And, this is a longstanding tradition in Latino community teams, but even today, Major League Baseball and Minor League Baseball are continuing the tradition of honoring Latino heritage on the field in this way.
Yeah, and any all right, Eden, here's a term for people who like any seam head, that's because baseball has seams on them. Like, so baseball fans are called seam heads. Any seam head will know that this looks like the Cardinals jersey. So, the St. Louis Cardinals have a very similar logo. And I appreciate the way in which this community has remixed that particular logo and made it their own. And Robin, you mentioned that there are many different iterations and ways in which baseball is honoring Latino identity. Can you highlight what is going on here in this vast array of uniforms?
Yeah, so these are some are from Major League Baseball, some are from Minor League Baseball, some are from community teams. So like, for example, here, Elotes, the orange one at the bottom, and Soñadores, these are from Minor League Baseball's Copa de la Diversión, or Fun Cup, which is an initiative where minor league baseball teams temporarily change their name and mascot to celebrate Latino heritage and Latino contributions to the game. Some are also from Major League Baseball, like the Cerveceros right there. That's just Spanish for the Brewers. Right next to it, Los Rojos are the Reds. But, there's also like Choriceros, which was a community team from East LA. And the Cubanos jersey right there, that's from the Havana Sugar Kings, which was a semi-pro team that played in Havana and in Florida. So, this is sort of a tradition of making these custom jerseys that has been going on for a long time.
Wonderful. Yeah. So which one's your favorite? I'm curious.
I really like the Vejigantes one, this blue one in the top left. I'm Puerto Rican, and the Vejigante is like a fun carnival character. But also just for the aesthetics, I really like the choriceros. I like the sort of like vintage script. And I like the texture of the wool, although I would never want to play any sport in a wool uniform.
No,
but
I agree. I agree. You know, I will say though, as a former baseball player, I equally hated the polyester. There is no fun baseball uniform. All right, so we're gonna move on to our next artifact here and see how creativity is sort of woven throughout baseball and Latino identity. And we have this amazing painting, and I'm just gonna leave it to you to share the story of this artifact because it's wonderful. So I'll let you take over.
Sure. Yeah, I love this painting too. This is a painting by Cuban artist Reinerio Tamayo. And, you know, baseball's had a significant influence on Cuban culture for over a century. And, you know, Cubans have even been called the apostles of baseball for spreading the sport throughout the Caribbean. And, you know, playing baseball has been a way for a lot of Cubans to come to the United States. And so in this painting, Tamayo depicts Chicago White Sox player and Cuban defector, Jose Abreu, and he is guided by Cuba's patron saint, La Virgen de la Caridad del Cobre. And so there are a lot of sort of really significant details in this work. You know, for instance, Caridad del Cobre, she's a symbol of hope, and she's the patron saint of travelers and of seafarers like Abreu and many others who left Cuba. And even the baby Jesus in her arms gestures to the son who Abreu had to leave behind when he defected from Cuba. And, you know, I love the little Cuba baseball cap that the baby Jesus is wearing. And Caridad del Cobre, she's got a really cool set of batting gloves on. So there's just a lot of really neat details going on in that photo. And,
yeah,
you know, go ahead.
I like how excited she is to be a part of this.
Yeah, but you know, this is sort of connected to the creative design elements we were talking about with the jerseys, because you know, this painting is referencing something very iconic. You know, it's sort of referencing the aesthetic of a baseball card and infusing it with these images of Cuban cultural identity. And you know, baseball cards are sort of like the hallmark of material culture within the world of baseball. And so, you know, painted to resemble a baseball card in this way, it is just depicting how religion, immigration, and baseball are all intertwined in Cuban culture.
Yeah, and this picture here allows folks to see that I mean, if you're familiar with a baseball card or a Pokemon card or a trading card of any kind, you can see how Tamayo has really messed with that image in a fun, playful way to introduce all of these elements that Robin has explained. And here's the artist and
his son. Yep, his family came to visit us when he donated the painting to the museum, and there's Margie there accepting the donation. And you know, it's really a special experience for us to be able to meet with these folks who are contributing, you know, their stories, their art, their objects to the national collection.
All right, we've got time for one more. All right. This is an image of the Barrett bat, and you know, this on the surface might not read as being creative or bringing identity to the fore, but Robin, please let us know how it is in fact doing that.
Yeah, so this is a custom handmade bat crafted by Dominican American bat maker Juan Barrett. Juan was born in the Dominican Republic, and he moved to the Bronx with his family as a child. He grew up an avid Yankees fan, and he played on various baseball teams with training and guidance from his father. And Juan eventually joined the Air Force. But after dealing with multiple injuries from his service, he was unable to continue playing baseball. But he was determined to stay involved with the game in some way. So he decided to start making baseball bats. And thus his company, Barrett Bats, was born. And this bat in particular really beautifully tells his personal story. Juan tells us that this kind of turning and woodworking has been therapeutic for him, dealing with his injuries. And he calls this model desert camo. I think you can see it up there on the top. He used fish netting as a stencil to create the camo pattern, and the browns and tan colors represent his time serving in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and Afghanistan. And then AB10, model AB10 at the top, that's the shape profile of the bat, because some bats are heavier or lighter, longer, narrower, they have different specifications. But he names all of these models with the initials of his children. So the AB is for his second daughter, Alexandra Barrett. And, this is related to the jerseys and related to the painting because it tells a story, not so much of cultural identity, but of Juan Barrett's personal identity and, his life story. And it's just another example of how Latinos have shown this sort of creative expression through baseball.
Wonderful. Well, Robin, thank you very much for sharing your work and your time with us today. And we're going to bring Margie back on. And we're going to, well, first we got to answer Eden's question. So Margie and Robin, how much research went into knowing about baseball, both you all and the other folks on the team?
Well, I can start and then hand it to Robin, but I'd have to say that Robin is far more well-versed in all of the rules and stats of baseball than I am. Primarily, though, we designed the exhibit to be about Latino communities. And baseball is a great lens through which to kind of understand themes like community building, immigration, migration, labor, cultural expression, ethnic identity, gender identity. And so, while we talk about the amazing and talented players and their positions, their awards, their stats, we really try to focus on how baseball has transformed Latino communities and how Latinas and Latinos have not only transformed the game, but transformed American culture more broadly. So I don't think you need to know all the rules of baseball to really enjoy the exhibit or the stories that we're trying to tell. And I think that's been evident, especially in the great objects that Robin was just pointing out about, cultural expression. So Robin, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge baseball fan. I used to work in minor league baseball. And so this for me has been a really excited opportunity to just learn even more. And I definitely wasn't as knowledgeable about sort of the history of Latinos in baseball. So that's been, a pleasure for me to learn more about that.
We geek out a lot.
And our teams played each other in the World Series this past year. So it was quite a fall.
And by these teams, folks, Margie, Dodgers, Robin, Rays. So there you go.
And we're still friends. So
all right, everyone. So we're going to end with a small game called What Is It? And the way this works is I'm going to show you an image of an object, and I'm going to leave it to you all to work as a team to identify it and then explain how it is connected to our conversation that we had today. All right. Any questions about how this is going to go?
No, let's see.
Bring it on.
All right, y'all are going to do great. All right, so here's our first object. All right, Robin and Margie, what is it?
I know what that is. Do you want to take this one, or I could take this one?
Go ahead, Margie.
Okay. So that is called a Guida. It was handcrafted by punching little holes in a sheet of metal, and then the metal is kind of wrapped and welded on the side so that it becomes a cylinder. And then the thing on the side of it is a scraper, and that is metal pieces, just like nails or metal prongs that are put into a piece of wood. And what you do is you use the scraper to scrape against the guida, and you make, and you make some great percussion sounds. And the way that it relates to baseball is that, it's been used in musical genres from the Caribbean, like merengue, bachata, and A lot of baseball fans, especially in community teams and leagues and games, will bring those to the stands. Usually the scrapers aren't so sharp, and they'll use them to play the instrument while their team is up. So so you could definitely hear the sounds of guidas in stands across the country and across Latin America.
Very good, very good. All right, number 2. All right, folks. What is it?
Oh,
I'll let Margie take this one, even though I know what it is.
Okay, that is a stadium, but it's not just any stadium. It is Dodger Stadium. And there's a very long story behind the building of Dodger Stadium. I don't know if we have time to really go into it. Do we?
Probably not, but what's the quick and short version of it?
Okay, well, Dodger Stadium was unfortunately built over Latino communities, neighborhoods that were called Chavez Ravine. These were some of the few neighborhoods in LA where Latinos were able to own land, and they had really amazing, vibrant communities there. The city of LA promised to build affordable housing and used a number of ways to get the community to move out, including eminent domain, so that they could build the affordable housing. But then they never built the affordable housing, and instead they signed a contract with the Dodgers that came from Brooklyn to build the stadium over those communities. So there are these layers of history that are very problematic, obviously, and somehow I'm still a Dodger fan.
Margie, I know exactly. I mean, I was born in LA. My first game was at Shea Stadium, so that's how come I ended up rooting up for the Mets. But I'm a Dodgers fan also, and a good friend of mine who's an Angels fan always said, Dodger Stadium has segregated seating. You can't go from one section to the other. I'm just saying, and I was like, oh.
It's true. I've spent so many games in that outfield, the Chicano section.
All right, next object. Let's see. What is it, folks?
I'll leave that to you.
All right, Robin. It is a baby shark. Now, how is this connected to what we're talking about today?
Well, I believe it was the 2019 postseason. The Nats took on the baby shark as a theme song. Because I think the background story was I don't remember this guy's name, Barra.
Yep, Gerardo
Balda. Yeah.
Yep.
He I think he had it as a walk-up song, like for his daughter. He had like a 2-year-old daughter, and she was obsessed with the song. So Baby Shark just became like the theme song of Nats Stadium, and they were World Series champions in 2019. So we had all of the city of Washington, D.C. singing Baby Shark for all of October.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm singing it in my head right now.
100%. That's exactly what's happening.
Yep.
All right. Last object to get us out for our time together. What is it, folks?
Okay, I'll let you have that one too, Robin, if you'd like.
Okay, that's a tough one. I probably wouldn't know except for working on this project, but that is a churrera, a churro maker. And so the big piece is where you put all the like filling, and then these 2 little bars are the spouts, kind of the molds where you put them into the end and then you squeeze it out and the batter comes out in these shapes. And so this object is from a family, I'm blanking on their name, Margie. It's not Mendez.
Nunez,
thank you. The Nunez family, who the mother of this family, she had this churro maker, and she would make churros for her son's baseball game. She'd bring them to the games and sell them. And he realized that she could really like make a living doing this because it was very popular. And so for years she would, mix up her batter and make her churros and sell them at the games. And, this is another thing that we talk about throughout the Pleibol exhibit, but, just little ways, not just as players, but other ways that Latinos sort of contribute to the sounds and smells and tastes of baseball.
Oh yeah, now you can get churros at most stadiums, I think.
And they're delicious.
And they're delicious. Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the things that we wanted to showcase is how women have contributed to the game in so many myriad ways that we don't even think about. You know, forming their own teams, sewing patches, caring for children, selling concessions like churros.
Exactly. All right, everyone, we have come to the end of our time together. Thank you, Margie. Thank you, Robin, for being with us today. I'm going to hand it back over to Eden to take us out with a couple of logistic announcements and to let us know what's coming up next time.
Thank you. So in the comment box or the chat box, there's a lot of resources, the link to not just today's objects that we saw, but a lesson plan on the exhibit, the 3D digitization link. So please check those out. We are taking a bit of a spring break. The next episode will be aired on Thursday, April 22nd at 11 a.m. Eastern on environmental justice and activism. But all of our social studies online episodes are archived, so please come back and rewatch anytime. Thank you to our hosts and our guests. Thank you to all of you for spending some time with us, whether that was live or in the archived view. I'm definitely craving churros now, so that's going to be like my weekend project. And we hope you're all staying safe and healthy and eating good food.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. That was fun.